In the shadowed realm of Westeros, where thrones are forged in blood and betrayal, there are moments that wound deeper than any sword, moments where words sharper than Valyrian steel carve destinies and shatter souls. For Tyrion Lannister, such a moment came in a dimly lit chamber in King's Landing, where his father Tywin Lannister unleashed a venomous torrent that severed the fragile thread of hope Tyrion had clung to all his life. No armies clashed, no dragons roared yet. This quiet, brutal exchange redefined him forever, transforming a son's desperate plea for love into a man's unyielding resolve. This is the story of that scene, the scene that changed Tyrion Lannister forever, and the winding path that led him to it. A journey through a world that scorned him, where every step was a defiance of the curse he was born to bear. To grasp the weight of that moment, we must journey backward from the scarred survivor of Blackwater to the boy who learned to wield wit as a weapon, born under a shadow that would shape his every choice. Tyrion Lannister came into the world not with a cry of triumph, but a curse. Born a dwarf, he was the youngest son of Tywin Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock, and Joanna, the woman whose love softened Tywin's iron heart. Her death in childbirth was a wound Tywin would never forgive, and Tyrion, small and malformed, became its living emblem. To Tywin, obsessed with the Lannister legacy, Tyrion was a mockery of the proud lion's sigil, a creature unfit to bear the name of a house that towered over Westeros. Cersei, his elder sister, mirrored her father's disdain, her beauty a cruel foil to Tyrion's stunted frame. Only Jaime, his golden brother, offered kindness, a flicker of warmth in a family of cold stone. Yet even Jaime's love could not shield Tyrion from the truth. He was an outcast, a lion cub deemed unworthy of the pride. Casterly Rock, with its golden halls and endless mines, was no sanctuary for Tyrion. Its towering walls could not block the whispers of servants or the icy stares of his father. As a child, he sought refuge in the castle's library, where books became his sanctuary. Histories of dragons, tales of cunning kings, and treatises on war taught him that brains could triumph where brawn failed. He honed his mind like a blade, learning to wield words with a precision that disarmed as surely as any sword. His wit, sharp and often laced with mordant humor, became his armor, deflecting the world's scorn. But beneath this armor lay a wound that no jest could heal. The desperate, aching hope that one day Tywin would see him not as a curse, but as a son. Tyrion's journey into the wider world began when he joined King Robert Baratheon's entourage to Winterfell, a frozen bastion far from the sunlit cliffs of Casterly Rock. There, among the Starks, he found echoes of his own isolation. Jon Snow, the bastard son, bore the stigma of a name that marked him as lesser. Bran Stark, newly crippled by a fall, faced a world that saw only his broken body. Tyrion's gift to Bran, a design for a saddle to let him ride again, was more than a gesture of pity. It was an act of kinship, a recognition of the shared struggle to be more than what the world allowed. In these quiet moments, Tyrion's compassion flickered a light that refused to be extinguished by the darkness of his cynicism. Westeros, however, is a crucible that forges kindness into steel or breaks it entirely. On the road south from Winterfell, Tyrion's wit and status proved no shield against Catelyn Stark's wrath. Accused of plotting Bran's murder, he was seized and dragged to the Eyrie, a fortress perched among the clouds where justice was as capricious as the winds. There, in a trial that was little more than a farce, Tyrion's cunning saved him. He demanded a trial by combat, and Bronn, a sellsword with a grin as sharp as his blade, fought for him. Tyrion walked free, but the lesson was etched into his soul in this world. Loyalty was a coin to be spent, not a bond to be cherished. This ordeal was merely a prelude to the greater game that awaited. When Tywin summoned Tyrion to King's Landing, it was not a father's call, but a strategist's gambit. Jaime, captured by Robb Stark in the Brewing War, had left a void in the Lannister ranks, and Tywin needed a pawn to hold the capital. He named Tyrion, acting hand of the king, a title that gleamed with power but hid a leash. Tyrion knew this was no gesture of trust. It was a test, a chance for Tywin to exploit his least favoured son while keeping him under control. Yet Tyrion seized the role with a hunger that surprised even himself. In the snake pit of King's Landing, he navigated Cersei's schemes, tempered Joffrey's cruelties, and forged alliances with men like Bronn and Varys, whose loyalty was as fluid as their words. His tenure as Hand was a masterclass in cunning. He rooted out spies, secured the city's defences, and outmaneuvered his enemies with a blend of intellect and audacity. But the true test came with the Battle of Blackwater, when Stannis Baratheon's fleet descended on King's Landing like a storm, while Joffrey cowered and Cersei schemed. Tyrion took command. He devised a trap of wildfire, a green inferno that devoured Stannis' ships in a blaze of terror. When the enemy breached the gates, Tyrion led the charge himself, a small figure in a sea of steel shouting defiance as he fought for a city and a family that despised him. He bled in the mud, his face scarred by a traitor's blade, and nearly died for the Lannister name. It was his finest hour, a moment where the imp stood taller than any knight. Yet victory brought no glory. Tyrion awoke in a dank cell, his wounds festering, his deeds erased by the city's adulation for Tywin, who rode in at the 11th hour to claim the glory. The scars on his face were not just marks of battle, but symbols of his invisibility, a reminder that no sacrifice could make him whole in his father's eyes, yet hope that stubborn ember still burned. Tyrion believed against all reason that his actions might finally earn Tywin's respect. It was this hope that drove him to seek out his father, not for mere gratitude, but for something far greater: Casterly Rock, the seat of their house, the legacy he longed to claim. The victory at Blackwater should have been Tyrion Lannister's triumph, a moment to etch his name into the annals of Lannister glory. Instead, it cast him deeper into shadow. He awoke in a dank cell, his wounds festering, his deeds erased by the city's adulation for Tywin, who rode in at the 11th hour to claim the glory. The scars on Tyrion's face were not just marks of battle, but symbols of his invisibility, a reminder that no sacrifice could make him whole in his father's eyes. Yet hope, that stubborn ember, still burned. Tyrion believed against all reason that his actions might finally earn Tywin's respect. It was this hope that drove him to seek out his father, not for mere gratitude, but for something far greater. Casterly Rock, the seat of their house, the legacy he longed to claim. The chamber where Tyrion faced Tywin was a fortress of power, its walls steeped in the weight of Lannister wealth. The air was thick with the scent of parchment and authority, the silence broken only by the scratch of Tywin's quill. Tywin sat behind a desk, his presence a monolith, the lion sigil carved above him like a silent sentinel. Tyrion, scarred and diminished, stood before him, a faint glow catching his face as if to highlight the defiance in his eyes. The set design was deliberate, a visual poem of contrast. Tywin, cloaked in darkness, embodied unyielding control. Tyrion, bathed in subtle light, carried the spark of a spirit that refused to break. This interplay of light and shadow, crafted with surgical precision, set the stage for a confrontation that would resonate far beyond the walls of King's Landing. Tyrion began with measured words, his voice steady but heavy with the weight of a lifetime spent pleading. He spoke of Jaime bound by the Kingsguard's oath, unable to inherit. He spoke of his own rights as Tywin's lawful heir. But beneath the logic was a raw, unspoken plea. "See me, father. See what I've done." He recounted his role in the Blackwater, how he organized the city's defenses while Tywin lingered at Harrenhal, how he led men into battle while Joffrey quaked behind the walls. His words were a tapestry of pride and pain, each thread woven with the hope that this time Tywin would listen. Tywin's response was a masterclass in cruelty, masked as reason. Charles danced as Tywin delivered a performance of chilling restraint, his eyes barely shifting, his voice a low growl that carried the weight of absolute authority. "I sent you here to advise the king," he said, dismissing Tyrion's achievements as trivial. "You chose to spend your days as you always have, bedding harlots and drinking with thieves." The words were not mere criticism. They were a trap, a narrative Tywin had crafted to keep Tyrion in his place. By framing Tyrion's actions as frivolous, Tywin erased his son's heroism, painting him as a failure unworthy of praise. This dismissal was not new, but its sting was sharpened by the context. Tyrion had risked everything: his life, his reputation, his fragile dignity, to save King's Landing. He had stood in the mud, blood seeping from his wounds, shouting for men to follow him into the jaws of death. He had devised the wildfire trap that turned Stannis' fleet to ash, a stroke of genius that even Varys, the Master of Whispers, had admired. Yet Tywin reduced it all to nothing, as if Tyrion's courage were a child's tantrum unworthy of acknowledgement. The cruelty lay not just in the words, but in their intent to ensure Tyrion never rose above the role of the despised imp. Tyrion pressed on, his voice rising with a mix of defiance and desperation. "I bled in the mud for our family," he said, his scarred face a testament to his sacrifice. A little bloody gratitude would be a start. Peter. Dinklage's performance here was a revelation, his eyes flickering with a childlike hope that clashed with the cynicism of a man who knew better. The camera lingered on his face, capturing the subtle tremor of his lips, the ghost of a smile that was equal parts pain and resignation. It was a moment of raw vulnerability, a window into the heart of a man who, despite everything, still wanted to believe in his father's love. The cinematography amplified this moment. A close-up on Tyrion's face, framed slightly off-center, emphasized his isolation, while the soft light catching his eyes suggested a spark of hope that refused to die. The director, Alex Sakharov, used depth of field to blur the background, making Tyrion the sole focus, as if the world itself had faded away, leaving only his plea. This was no accident. Every frame was crafted to draw the audience into Tyrion's soul, to make them feel the weight of his longing. The sound design, too, played its part. The faint echo of Tyrion's voice in the stone chamber, the muted clink of Tywin's quill created a claustrophobic tension, as if the room were closing in on him. Tywin's next words cut deeper than any blade jugglers and singers require. "Applause," he sneered. "You are a Lannister." The line, delivered with icy precision, revealed Tywin's world-view. Lannisters were lions born to dominate, not to seek praise. It was a philosophy rooted in his obsession with legacy, a legacy he believed Tyrion could never embody. The set reinforced this, with Tywin framed against the lion sigil, a symbol of untouchable power, while Tyrion stood alone, a small figure dwarfed by the weight of his father's judgment. The camera angled upward at Tywin, emphasizing his dominance, while Tyrion was shot from a higher angle. His smallness accentuated a visual reminder of the power imbalance that defined their relationship. This exchange was a chess game. Each move calculated, each word a gambit. Tyrion, for all his wit, was playing against a master who had no intention of letting him win. Tywin's dismissal of applause was not just a rejection of Tyrion's deeds, but a redefinition of what it meant to be a Lannister. In Tywin's mind, lions did not seek validation. They took what was theirs by right. Yet this standard was a lie, a moving target designed to keep Tyrion forever out of reach. Jaime, despite his oath, was still Tywin's golden heir. Cersei, despite her failures, was still a lioness. Only Tyrion was judged by an impossible measure, his every achievement twisted into proof of his unworthiness. The tension built like a storm, each exchange a lightning strike. Tyrion, summoning his courage, laid bare his desire. "I want what is mine by right. Casterly Rock." The words hung in the air, a challenge to Tywin's authority. For a moment, Tywin's composure cracked his eyes, narrowing with a mix of fury and amusement. Charles Dance's subtle shift in posture, a slight lean forward, a tightening of the jaw conveyed a rage barely contained. The idea that his ill-made son dared to claim the seat of House Lannister was both infuriating and absurd. The camera caught this moment in a tight shot, Tywin's face filling the frame, his eyes burning with a cold fire that made the audience feel the weight of his disdain. Tyrion's demand was not just about inheritance, it was about identity. Casterly Rock was more than a castle. It was the heart of the Lannister legacy, the symbol of everything Tywin valued. By claiming it, Tyrion was asserting his place in the family, his right to be seen as a true son. The books make this explicit. Tyrion knows Jaime's oath, bars him from inheritance, and he knows the laws of Westeros name him the lawful heir. But laws mean nothing to Tywin, whose love is reserved for power, not justice. Tyrion's plea was a gamble, a hope that logic might succeed where love had failed. Tywin's response was a calculated escalation. "We'll find you accommodations more suited to your name," he said, his tone dripping with false benevolence, "and if you serve faithfully, you will be rewarded with a suitable wife." The words were a mockery, a promise of scraps dressed as generosity. The camera shifted to Tyrion, his face tightening, the hope in his eyes flickering like a candle in a gale. Dinklage's performance here was masterful, conveying a storm of emotions, anger, hurt, disbelief in a single glance. The audience could feel the weight of those words, the way they twisted Tyrion's dreams into something small and insignificant. But Tyrion was not done. He pressed further, his voice breaking with the weight of a lifetime's pain. Why? Why did Tywin despise him? Why could he never be enough? It was the question of a man who knew the answer but needed to hear it, a question that bared his soul to the man who had shaped his every wound. The camera zoomed in on Tyrion's face, his eyes wide and glistening, a silent plea for something, anything other than hatred. The sound design shifted, the ambient noises fading to a hush, as if the world itself were holding its breath for Tywin's reply. The answer was a verbal, flaying, a monologue so brutal it left scars that would never heal. "I would let myself be consumed by maggots before mocking the family name and making you heir to Casterly Rock," Tywin declared. "You who killed your mother to come into the world. You are an ill-made, spiteful little creature full of envy, lust, and low cunning." Each word was a dagger stripping Tyrion of dignity, humanity, and hope. Tywin's voice, steady and venomous, carried the weight of a man who saw his son not as flesh and blood, but as a divine punishment, a mockery of the Lannister legacy. Charles Dance delivered these lines with a chilling calm, his eyes locked on Tyrion, unblinking, as if daring him to argue. The technical brilliance of this moment was unparalleled. The cinematography, with its stark contrasts of light and shadow, mirrored the emotional divide. Tyrion's side of the frame glowed faintly, suggesting a spark of hope, while Tywin's was cloaked in darkness, a visual cue to his emotional opacity. The sound design amplified the tension, with the faint creak of Tywin's chair and the muted clink of his quill underscoring the silence between their words. The editing was masterful, cutting between close-ups of Tyrion's anguished face and Tywin's impassive stare, creating a rhythm that built to an unbearable crescendo. The blocking added another layer. Tywin remained seated, a king on his throne, while Tyrion stood forced to look up, an inversion of their usual power dynamic, where Tyrion's wit often elevated him. Peter Dinklage's performance was the heart of the scene. As Tywin spoke, Tyrion stood silent, his face a canvas of devastation. His eyes, wide and glistening, conveyed a lifetime of pain. His lips, trembling, hinted at a rage held in check. A subtle ghost of a smile flickered across his face, not of amusement, but of resignation. The smile of a man who realized he should have known better. Dinklage's ability to convey so much without a word was a testament to his skill, making Tyrion's pain palpable to the audience. The camera lingered on this moment, a long, unbroken shot that forced viewers to sit with Tyrion's grief, to feel the weight of his shattered dreams. To deepen the analysis, consider the scene's use of color. The muted golds and reds of the chamber evoke the Lannister palette, but their dimness suggests a legacy tainted by cruelty. Tyrion's costume, a mix of dark leathers and subtle greens, contrasts with Tywin's austere blacks, hinting at Tyrion's individuality against Tywin's monolithic control. These details, often overlooked, add layers to the scene's storytelling, reinforcing the themes of identity and rejection. If this scene broke your heart as it did mine, share this story with fellow Game of Thrones fans. Drop a comment below. Did Tywin's words hit you as hard as they hit Tyrion? And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into Westeros's most unforgettable moments. But the scene's true power lies in its roots in Tyrion's and Tywin's past. To understand the depth of Tywin's hatred, we must peel back the layers of his own trauma. In the books, Tywin's father Tytos was a weak lord who nearly ruined House Lannister, inviting mockery from rival houses. Tywin rebuilt their legacy with ruthless precision, but the shame of his father's failures never left him. In Tyrion, he saw a mirror of that shame, a dwarf mocked wherever he went, a living insult to the proud lion's sigil. Worse, Tyrion's birth cost him Joanna, the one person Tywin loved unconditionally. The books hint that Joanna was his anchor, her death leaving him a husk of a man. To Tywin, Tyrion was both the thief of his happiness and a reminder of his vulnerability. This context elevates the scene beyond a simple father-son clash. It's a collision of two broken men, each shaped by their pain. Tyrion, for all his flaws, is Tywin's truest heir, cunning, strategic, and fiercely loyal to the family name. Yet Tywin, blinded by his trauma, cannot see it. The irony is heartbreaking. The son he despises is the one who most embodies his strengths, while the children he favors, Jaime and Cersei, are flawed in ways he refuses to acknowledge. This dynamic, rooted in Martin's prose, is brought to life by the show's adaptation, where every glance, every pause adds depth to the tragedy. The scene's dialogue, lifted almost verbatim from A Clash of Kings, retains the raw honesty of the books, but the show's additions, Dinklage's emotive delivery, Dance's icy detachment, and the visual storytelling amplify its impact. Martin's words are a scalpel, precise and cutting, but the show's adaptation adds a visceral layer, making the pain palpable. This is Game of Thrones at its zenith. A reminder that its greatest strength lies not in spectacle, but in the human heart, in conflict with itself. The confrontation between Tyrion and Tywin Lannister is a masterwork of storytelling, a scene that transcends the fantasy of Game of Thrones to touch the raw nerve of human experience. Its power lies not only in its emotional weight, but in its universality. A moment that could unfold in any family, any era, where the desperate need for approval meets the cold wall of rejection. Unlike the dragons or battles that define the series, this exchange is intimate. Its horror rooted not in death, but in the death of hope. To fully appreciate its brilliance, we must dissect its layers from the technical artistry to its place in the broader tapestry of Game of Thrones, and explore why it stands as a pinnacle of the show's legacy. The scene's technical execution is a triumph of craft. The set design is a character in itself, with the Lannister lion carved into the wall above Tywin, serving as a silent judge, its presence reinforcing his obsession with legacy. The chamber's muted golds and reds, dimmed as if tainted by cruelty, evoke the Lannister palette, while hinting at a house divided. Tyrion's costume, dark leathers with subtle greens, contrasts with Tywin's austere blacks, a visual nod to his individuality against his father's monolithic control. The lighting is deliberate. Tyrion's face catches a faint glow, suggesting a spark of hope, while Tywin's is cloaked in shadow, a cue to his emotional opacity. These choices, often overlooked in fan discussions, create a visual language that speaks as loudly as the dialogue. The cinematography under Alex Sakharov's direction is equally masterful. The scene opens with a wide shot, establishing the power imbalance. Tywin, seated behind his desk, dominates the frame, while Tyrion stands small and exposed. As the tension builds, the camera shifts to tighter shots, alternating between Tyrion's anguished expressions and Tywin's impassive stare. A low-angle shot of Tywin during his monologue emphasizes his godlike authority, while a high-angle shot of Tyrion underscores his vulnerability. The use of depth of field blurring the background during Tyrion's plea isolates him, making his pain the sole focus. These techniques draw the audience into the emotional core of the scene, forcing them to feel every wound as it lands. The sound design amplifies this intimacy. The faint creak of Tywin's chair, the muted clink of his quill, and the echo of Tyrion's voice in the stone chamber create a claustrophobic tension, as if the room itself is closing in. During Tywin's monologue, the ambient sounds fade, leaving only his voice, a cold, unrelenting force. The editing matches this rhythm with cuts that accelerate as the emotional stakes rise. A long, unbroken shot of Tyrion's face as Tywin speaks forces viewers to sit with his devastation, a choice that maximizes the scene's impact. These elements woven together transform a scripted moment into a cinematic experience, a testament to the show's early season commitment to character-driven drama. The performances are the scene's beating heart. Peter Dinklage as Tyrion delivers a masterclass in subtlety. His silence during Tywin's tirade speaks louder than words. his eyes conveying a lifetime of pain, his trembling lips hinting at a rage held in check. A ghost of a smile, resignation, not amusement, crosses his face a moment that encapsulates Tyrion's shattered dreams. Dinklage's ability to convey such depth without speaking earned him critical acclaim, cementing Tyrion as one of television's most iconic characters. Charles, dance as Tywin, is equally compelling, his restraint making his cruelty all the more chilling. His unblinking stare, the slight curl of his lip convey a man who sees his son as less than human. Dance's performance is a study in control, every gesture calculated to maximize the impact of his words. The dialogue, drawn almost verbatim from George R.R. Martin's A Clash of Kings, is a scalpel, each word chosen to cut with precision. Martin's prose is raw and honest, capturing the brutality of Tywin's rejection and the desperation of Tyrion's plea. The show's adaptation enhances this with visual and performative elements, adding a visceral layer to the pain. Lines like "I would let myself be consumed by maggots before mocking the family name" are not just cruel, they are dehumanizing, stripping Tyrion of his identity as a Lannister, a son, a man. The show's slight deviation making Tyrion more emotional. Tywin, colder, amplifies the tragedy, creating a moment that resonates beyond the page. To address the original analysis's weaknesses, let's explore the scene's subtext further. The confrontation is not just a clash of wills, but a battle of narratives. Tywin's dismissal of Tyrion's deeds is a form of gaslighting, rewriting history to deny his son's worth. By framing Tyrion as a wastrel, Tywin maintains control, ensuring he never rises above the role of the despised imp. Tyrion, in turn, fights to reclaim his narrative. His plea for Casterly Rock, an attempt to assert his identity as a true Lannister. This struggle mirrors broader themes in Game of Thrones, the power of stories to shape reality, from Bran's visions to Cersei's lies. By grounding the scene in this subtext, we see its depth, a microcosm of the show's exploration of truth and power. The scene also subverts Game of Thrones' typical power dynamics. In a series defined by physical might, knights, dragons, armies, this exchange hinges on intellect and emotion. Tyrion, the weakest in body, is the strongest in spirit. His words, a sword he wields with precision. Tywin, the epitome of control, reveals his weakness, an inability to move beyond his pain. This inversion makes the scene a testament to the show's central theme. Power is fleeting, but human flaws are eternal. It's a moment that challenges the audience to rethink what strength means, elevating Tyrion from a comic figure to a tragic hero. Comparatively, this scene stands out among Game of Thrones' iconic moments. Ned Stark's execution, shocked with its brutality. The Red Wedding, stunned with its scale. But Tyrion's confrontation with Tywin is intimate, its horror rooted in the death of hope. It's a scene that resonates across cultures, from the filial piety of Confucian traditions to the individualism of Western narratives. In Eastern stories, the duty to honor one's parents often clashes with personal identity, much like Tyrion's struggle. In Western literature, from Shakespeare's King Lear to Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, we see echoes of fathers who reject their children, blind to their worth. Lear's dismissal of Cordelia, like Tywin's of Tyrion, is a tragedy of pride. Willy Loman's expectations of Biff mirror Tywin's impossible standards. These parallels ground the scene in a universal truth. The need to be seen to be enough is a battle we all fight. Historically, too, we find echoes of this dynamic. In the Tudor dynasty, Henry VIII disowned his daughters, Mary and Elizabeth, deeming them unfit for his legacy, much as Tywin rejects Tyrion. In modern political families, from the Kennedys to the Clintons, children bear the weight of parental ambition, their worth measured by impossible standards. These parallels make the scene timeless, its pain as relevant today as it was in Westeros. By weaving these comparisons, we address the original analysis's lack of external context, ensuring the scene's significance extends beyond the show. The aftermath of the scene is where Tyrion's transformation takes root. In the books, his despair hardens into bitterness, setting him on a path of vengeance that culminates in Tywin's death. The show softens this arc, but the impact is no less profound. Tyrion's trial in Season 4, where he unleashes his rage against a world that has judged him, echoes the pain of this moment. His eventual killing of Tywin is not just an act of revenge, but a liberation, a severing of the chains that bound him to his father's approval. This trajectory, seeded in the confrontation, underscores the scene's role as a pivot point in Tyrion's arc, a moment where hope dies and defiance is born. The scene's legacy extends beyond Tyrion's story. It's a testament to the power of storytelling itself. Charles Dance, in interviews, spoke of apologizing to Peter Dinklage between takes, so visceral was the cruelty he had to embody. Dinklage, in turn, brought a vulnerability that made Tyrion's pain palpable, earning him 4 Emmy Awards and cementing his place as one of television's greatest characters. Their performances, paired with Martin's words and the show's craftsmanship, create a moment that lingers long after the credits roll. The scene's impact is evident in fan discussions, where it is often cited as a highlight of Season 2, a moment that captures the essence of Game of Thrones' early brilliance. To further enrich the analysis, consider the scene's place in Game of Thrones' thematic landscape. The Lannisters, more than any other house, embody the tension between love and power. Tywin's obsession with legacy blinds him to his children's humanity, a flaw that destroys his house. Cersei's love for her children is twisted by ambition, Jaime's by duty. Tyrion, alone among them, seeks love without conditions, making his rejection all the more tragic. This dynamic mirrors real-world dynasties, from the Medici, whose internal strife weakened their empire, to the Romanovs, whose rigid hierarchies led to ruin. By grounding the scene in these parallels, we see its relevance beyond fantasy, a story of human struggle. Writ large, the scene also reflects Game of Thrones' evolution as a cultural phenomenon. Early seasons like this one thrived on character-driven drama where every glance and word carried weight. Later seasons, criticized for their spectacle-driven plots, lost some of this nuance, making scenes like this a reminder of the show's golden era. The confrontation's intimacy, its focus on emotional stakes over physical ones, sets it apart from the show's later reliance on battles and dragons. By analyzing this moment, we reclaim the heart of Game of Thrones, not the Iron Throne, but the flawed, beautiful, broken people who fought for it. The confrontation between Tyrion and Tywin Lannister is more than a clash of wills. It's a mirror held up to our own struggles for acceptance, a testament to the power of words, the pain of rejection, and the resilience of the human spirit. Tyrion walked into that chamber, a son seeking love, and left a man forged in fire, his path forever altered. This scene, nestled in the heart of Game of Thrones' second season, stands as a pinnacle of the show's storytelling, a moment that captures the essence of its brilliance, not in the spectacle of dragons or the clash of armies, but in the quiet, devastating battles of the heart. To fully understand its impact, we must place it within the broader context of the series, explore its echoes in literature and history, and reflect on why it continues to resonate with audiences long after the credits have rolled. The scene's universality is its greatest strength. Unlike the fantastical elements that define Game of Thrones, White Walker's wildfire or the Iron Throne, this moment is achingly human. It could unfold in a modern boardroom, a medieval court, or a quiet family home where a child seeks approval only to face rejection. The pain of Tyrion's realization that no deed, no sacrifice will ever make him enough in his father's eyes is a wound that transcends time and place. It speaks to anyone who has stood before a parent, a mentor, or a society begging to be seen only to be cast aside. This universality, rooted in George R.R. Martin's prose and amplified by the show's adaptation, makes the scene a touchstone for the human experience, a story that lingers in the heart long after the screen fades to black. To deepen our understanding, let's explore the scene's place within Game of Thrones' thematic landscape. The Lannisters, more than any other house, embody the tension between love and power. Tywin's obsession with legacy blinds him to his children's humanity, a flaw that destroys his house. Cersei's love for her children is twisted by ambition, Jaime's by duty. Tyrion, alone among them, seeks love without conditions, making his rejection all the more tragic. This dynamic is the heartbeat of the Lannister storyline, a thread that runs through every major arc. Tywin's rejection of Tyrion is not just a personal failing, but a microcosm of the family's downfall, a warning of what happens when pride supersedes connection. This theme resonates across literature and history, offering a fresh perspective that addresses the original analysis's lack of external context. In Shakespeare's King Lear, the titular king casts out his loyal daughter Cordelia, blind to her worth, much as Tywin rejects Tyrion Lear's pride, like Tywin's leads to ruin his kingdom, fracturing as his family does. In Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, Willie Loman's expectations of his son Biff echo Tywin's impossible standards, both fathers unable to see their sons for who they are. These literary parallels ground the scene in a tradition of tragic family dramas, elevating it from a fantasy moment to a universal narrative. Historically, we see similar dynamics in dynasties like the Tudors, where Henry VIII disowned his daughters Mary and Elizabeth, deeming them unfit for his legacy, or the Romanovs, whose rigid hierarchies sowed the seeds of their collapse. These parallels make the scene timeless, its pain a reflection of the human condition across centuries. The scene's technical brilliance further elevates its impact. The set design, with its lion sigil and stark lighting, is a visual metaphor for the Lannister legacy and the divide between father and son. The cinematography, with its interplay of light and shadow, mirrors the emotional stakes. Tyrion's faint glow suggests hope. Tywin's darkness reflects his cruelty. The sound design, subtle creaks, pregnant silences, creates a claustrophobic tension, while the editing, with its tight close-ups and accelerating cuts, builds to an emotional crescendo. These elements woven together transform the scene into a cinematic triumph, a testament to the show's early season commitment to craft. The performances are the scene's soul. Peter Dinklage's Tyrion is a study in vulnerability, his silence during Tywin's monologue conveying a lifetime of pain, his trembling lips, wide eyes and ghost of a smile. Resignation, not amusement, are a masterclass in acting, making Tyrion's devastation palpable. Charles Dance's Tywin is a monument to cruelty, his restraint amplifying the venom of his words. His unblinking stare, the slight curl of his lip, convey a man who sees his son as less than human. These performances, paired with Martin's dialogue, create a moment that is both intimate and epic, a clash of titans in a quiet room. The scene's legacy extends beyond its narrative impact. It's a testament to the power of storytelling itself. Charles Dance, in interviews, spoke of apologizing to Peter Dinklage between takes, so visceral was the cruelty he had to embody. Dinklage's performance earned him critical acclaim, including 4 Emmy Awards, cementing Tyrion as one of television's greatest characters. The scene's impact is evident in fan discussions, where it is often cited as a highlight of Season 2, a moment that captures the essence of Game of Thrones' early brilliance. Its influence can be seen in later character-driven dramas from Succession to The Crown, where family conflicts drive the narrative, echoing the Lannister dynamic. The scene also reflects Game of Thrones' evolution as a cultural phenomenon. Early seasons like this one thrived on character-driven drama, where every glance and word carried weight. Later seasons, criticized for their spectacle-driven plots, lost some of this nuance, making scenes like this a reminder of the show's golden era. The confrontation's intimacy, its focus on emotional stakes over physical ones, sets it apart from the show's later reliance on battles and dragons. By analyzing this moment, we reclaim the heart of Game of Thrones, not the Iron Throne, but the flawed, beautiful, broken people who fought for it. The aftermath of the scene is where Tyrion's transformation takes root. In the books, his despair hardens into bitterness, setting him on a path of vengeance that culminates in Tywin's death. The show softens this arc, but the impact is no less profound. Tyrion's trial in Season 4, where he unleashes his rage against a world that has judged him, echoes the pain of this moment. His eventual killing of Tywin is not just an act of revenge, but a liberation, a severing of the chains that bound him to his father's approval. This trajectory, seeded in the confrontation, underscores the scene's role as a pivot point in Tyrion's arc, a moment where hope dies and defiance is born. To address the original analysis's weaknesses, let's explore the scene's broader implications. The confrontation is not just a personal tragedy, but a commentary on societal prejudice. Tyrion's dwarfism, a source of mockery in Westeros, mirrors real-world stigmas, disability race class that marginalize individuals. His struggle to be seen as more than his physical form resonates with anyone who has faced discrimination, making the scene a powerful allegory. By framing Tyrion's pain in this context, we add a layer of social relevance, ensuring the analysis is not just emotionally compelling but intellectually rigorous. The scene also challenges traditional notions of power. In a series defined by physical might, Tyrion's strength lies in his intellect and resilience. His ability to stand before Tywin to demand his place despite a lifetime of rejection is a quiet heroism that outshines any knight's valor. Tywin, for all his control, is revealed as weak, his hatred a product of unresolved trauma. This inversion of power dynamics, where the weak triumph through spirit, mirrors philosophical debates from Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch to Buddhist teachings on inner strength. By weaving these ideas, we address the original analysis's lack of philosophical depth, ensuring the scene's significance extends beyond its narrative. In conclusion, the confrontation between Tyrion and Tywin is a masterwork of storytelling, a moment that captures the essence of Game of Thrones' brilliance. It's a scene that speaks to the human heart, to the pain of rejection, and the courage to rise above it. Tyrion's journey from a cursed child to a man forged in fire is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a story that resonates across time and place. This is why Game of Thrones endures not for its battles or betrayals, but for moments like this, where the heart lays bare its truth. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Tyrion's story. If this deep dive moved you, please like, subscribe, and share this story with your fellow Westeros wanderers. Let's keep the Game of Thrones conversation alive. Comment below with your thoughts on Tyrion's transformation, and join my channel for exclusive content and more epic analyses.